Welcome to the second season of Champions of Change. Be the change you want to see on Expanded TV and YouTube. I'm your host, Ed Vargas, president of Vargas and Associates, LLC, a strategic planning, leadership, and social impact consulting group in Silicon Valley. I host leaders to share their purpose or why and their reasons for what they do that inspire people to collaborate for greater positive impacts. This Champions of Change session features my keynote from the Unity, Advocacy, and Impact Summit I created in 2025, entitled Living with Purpose, Be the Change You Want to See. I share how I got through a life-threatening experience when I was 17 years old that became the foundation for my life's purpose, prioritizing family issues and paying it forward throughout my career. I've been an executive in the packaging industry, recruited to be an editor, publisher, and conference director for an international startup B2B publishing group, and much more. I enjoy using the power of music to bring people together to celebrate when I play guitar and sing in cover bands. I now advocate, coach, and mentor for the ethical and humane use of tech, creating collaborations with ERGs, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and government agencies for greater positive impacts. After you hear me talk about Ikigai, I encourage you to reflect on what drives your motivation to reach your goals. Reach out to me if you'd like to collaborate or invite me to be a speaker. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I know it's the Saturday before Thanksgiving, but again, from last year to this year, it's how can we bring people together? How do we share information? How do we bring resources and partner together for greater impact? So we were looking for people from employee resource groups, from nonprofits, organizations that you just saw and heard. Here's how you can do philanthropy and really be targeted with that. So that's the driver for me, the unity, advocacy, and impact. My name's Ed Vargas. I grew up here before it became Silicon Valley. And from that standpoint, I'll start telling my story. Give me the next slide, please. So again, this cover is talking about champions of change, be the change you want to see. That's the message here, is that when you see people, a professional, an organization, if you want to help people, follow that path, and you can create your own path. That's my core message. So again, coming from the Bay Area, I went to Sylvandale School here in the East Side. I would have gone to Andrew Hill, but there was one teacher in the 8th grade that told me, your grades are really good and you love sports. There's a school called Bellarmine College Preparatory. Why don't you apply? And I said to my parents, this is a tuition school. I've never been, in this situation before, but they said, Mijo, apply. Let's see what you can do. Well, I got in, and that changed my life in terms of thinking about what it represented, going to a Jesuit school, helping each other. My father was a World War II Army Air Force veteran, and one of the things I learned is that when you're on a mission, you don't even know if you're coming back. And so many times that didn't happen. People were not coming back. So when you get on that plane, you're looking at the crew members with you, and you have each other's back. That's the thing that's resonated with me. He worked at California Canners and Growers at the time. Before it was Silicon Valley, there were orchards here. I don't know if you remember that. But from that perspective, that's where I grew up. And my mentors at that time were my parents. People would say to me, my mom and dad, treat people the way you want to be treated. Be a lifelong learner. And now with things like AI, yes, I am a lifelong learner. Always do your best and help people in need. That's been the core of who I am. My younger brother, Steve, he was born with a cleft palate and a cleft lip. So what did that mean? It meant that he had to have operations just so that he could speak. And he had several operations before he was 2 years old. And when he went to the same elementary school that I did, I would not always just hang out with my friends. I would make sure that other kids in his class wouldn't make fun of him or bully him. And so I never got into a fight with anybody, but I would often walk over, and if there were kids that were standing around making fun of the way he spoke, I would look him in the eye and said, look, I want you to put yourself in my brother's shoes, and would you like them to do that to you? And if you don't have, if you continue to do this, I'll be back and we'll have another conversation. And that basically shut that kind of thing down. But again, you need to stand up for people. I was offered a full scholarship playing football at Bellarmine College Prep. At that time, I was a freshman. They had the #1 high school defense in the country. They weren't scored upon. So the bar was set pretty high. When I got to be a senior, I played first-string offense and first-string defense. And after the end of that year, I was offered a full athletic scholarship to play football at St. Mary's College in Moraga. And I thought to myself, this is great. I'll be able to go to great school, not worry about tuition, but I did need to have knee surgery. I had some damage there, so I thought, there'll be a chance to recover from that and then go to St. Mary's College. So I went into the operation room and came back home as a recuperating, but after about a week, all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. And so they rushed me to the hospital. They put me in an oxygen tent. And I still didn't know what I had. I was in the best shape of my life, wanted to go to college. That was my drive. But what they told me after that changed my life again. So I thought, here I am in a room, I can barely breathe. One of the nights that I was there, I had another patient in the room. He died. So here I was in a room with a dead person. And so going through that mindset, I said, if I ever get out of here, if I am able to walk away, what do I want to do with my life? Number one, at the age of 30, whatever company I work at, I want to be a senior executive there. Number two, we never really traveled a lot, so I wanted to travel internationally on business at some point. And number three, pay it forward for the rest of my life. So that's how I got the opportunity to learn from that situation. I found that what it was a pulmonary embolism. And a pulmonary embolism meant that the blood clots that had left my knee had gone through my heart. Usually they cause a heart attack. But I was able to survive that, and the pain that I felt were the blood clots on my lung walls. So what was the solution? Pretty straightforward. Take this blood thinner called Coumadin. So they gave me 4 shots a day when I was still in the hospital. They gave me pills to thin my blood for the next 7 months. But that made me rethink, what do I want to do with my life? And so rather than saying, gee, I'll go play football at that school and have a full scholarship, I thought that doing that situation again would not be the best thing, because if I ever got hurt again, I may not be as fortunate. So that's where I decided. I was also accepted at Santa Clara University and also had a California State scholarship. So back then, tuition was $22,000 a year. Fortunately, my California State scholarship was $20,000. So from that particular experience, went to Santa Clara, signed up, and 4 years later, I was able to get a business degree. So again, to summarize here, I set life goals for myself. I became an executive at the second company that recruited me at the age of 30. I did get recruited later to become an international publisher, conference director at a nonwovens, a business-to-business publishing group, and traveled to Europe, traveled to Canada, and even to Asia. And paying it forward, one example was that when I worked at AT&T, working in San Ramon, just down the street here, created something called High Tech Day. Working with the ASEMOS ERG, we would bring in local high school students to come in. We did this in San Ramon, but then again, taking this idea, we then did it across the 42 chapters across the U.S. And as the end of about a year ago, they had already also given out scholarships that were funded by the Hacemos organization, and they've given out over $4.5 million in scholarships to those students that have gone through High Tech Day. So that for me was a way that I could pay it forward. And that's what motivates me now, is to continue to help people in their process.
Hello, my name is Dawn Cordero, and I am the VP of Operations for Hacemos. Hacemos and AT&T recently celebrated its 19th annual National High Technology Day, offering high school students an inside look at the education and career opportunities in STEM. Let's hear more from Eric.
High Tech Day is where AT&T, Hacemos Employee Resource Group volunteers partner with the students in our community to get them to participate in some STEM workshops, science, technology, engineering, and math, and hopefully get them to be interested in pursuing education in a STEM field as they progress from high school into college and, of course, into the professional career.
This year's theme was STEM to the Future, STEM para el Futuro, which told the story of AT&T's community outreach and philanthropic efforts as a responsible corporate citizen in the Latino segment. Hacemos would like to thank our national sponsors. Through local and national partnerships, the event had over 10 million impressions. This year, students participated in hands-on technical activities in interactive sessions. Students toured AT&T buildings and labs, participated in technical demonstrations, viewed AT&T's connected car, and learned about careers and technology.
Look for that moment, look for those things within yourself that really get you going, that get you inspired, and use technology as a tool to achieve that dream.
Hacemos en Ramon, High Tech Day.
It helps us guide us to what future we want, and it's done that for me today.
Hacemos has offered over $3 million in scholarships, and more than 22,000 students have taken part in this event since the first High Technology Day hosted in 1998. Now let's see some highlights from this year's event.
So to summarize, I was the first in my family to attend college. I got my business and law degrees from Santa Clara University. I took a year off to save money to go to law school, but that's where we learned my mother had cancer. And then shortly after that, my dad had a heart attack, his first heart attack. So I decided after my first full year of law school, I was going to change gears. I still wanted to get my law degree, but at the same time, I wanted to be with my family. So I went to work for a company that would pay 70% of my tuition. That was Owens, Illinois Packaging Company. And I was a salesperson for them going up California, Oregon, and Washington. And was recruited from that company to be a product development manager at a company headquartered in Petaluma. And shortly after I got there, about 6 months later, I was told that the number one customer that that company had, they were going to shut down their facility here in Berkeley and would do that package or do that business in Kansas City. So they told us a year in advance that we would not have their business a year from now. So the VP of Sales and Marketing said, I'm done, can't replace a third of the business in a year. But I looked at it as an opportunity. So what I did is that I looked at our organization. We refigured our product mix. I brought in clients that use our facility as an R&D lab as well with new packaging. And so not only did we replace that business, this was also during an economic recession at the time. We replaced that volume. It was more profitable, and the volume of business that we helped generate within less than 2 years required us to open a second manufacturing facility in Southern California. So from that perspective, we didn't have to worry about losing the major customer. We even got more business and expanded our operation. When you work for a company like that, I'm thinking, okay, now I'm VP of Sales and Marketing, but it was the owner decided that because of an offer he got from a company that wanted to make their own packaging, he sold the business. So that's where I got also recruited to go to a company called Crown Zellerbach. Back in the day, it's 1 Bush Street. And so my office, then I was a corporate planner for 5 divisions and worked with them to build their business plans. One of the divisions was called nonwovens. And when you hear the word nonwovens, what do you think of? So from nonwovens, we're taking a look at how to take that technology and help that move forward. So in that process, nonwovens used our diapers for clothing for medical people. That's what they're doing there. And so I did that kind of presentation across the country. So that was the publishing component of it. And then later on, I was recruited to work for AT&T. And for 20 years there, I worked in a variety of different areas, diversity marketing, operations, IT. The last 10 years were metrics and analytics. And I definitely got involved with the Asemos Employee Resource Group, but also collaborated with 4 other ERGs as well, so that when we had a best practice, we were able to share that. Next slide, please. So again, my current roles, I'm president of Vargas and Associates, my consulting group, president of the Divina World Foundation. We've done this conference twice. There at Santa Clara University, my bucket list said I wanted to be a mentor at the Miller Center for Global Impact. One of my college roommates at the time, or lived down the street, Jeff Miller, did very well in Silicon Valley, donated $25 million to Santa Clara. So for the last 5 years, I've been a mentor with that organization. We help entrepreneurs if their business is to help the environment or to help an underserved community around the world. There are over 300 of our mentors. We work with that group. I'm also a co-author with something called Hispanic Stars Rising. That was #1 on Amazon at launch, Hispanic Journey. And then I even, my brother and I, we went to see Led Zeppelin when they were playing here in San Francisco. So I had to have an article in a magazine or a book that was called Led Zeppelin, I Was There. And again, I'm a lifelong musician, played guitar, and my wife and I live here in the East Bay. So Champions of Change, that's the reason for this conference. How can we look at a situation from a strategic planning perspective? How do we think through strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? How do we start? By being credible. That can build trust. And if you give respect to engage people to have them see that value in collaboration, that to me is the foundation for strong relationships and win-win solutions. So the ERGs that I worked at, it wasn't just, hey, we wanted to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. It's like, what's the business focus? What can we do? So some of the work that I did, we even had people that got involved, got a scholarship, and yes, they got money from AT&T. They went to work for AT&T. So that was an opportunity for them to also, take advantage of people that were familiar with it and wanted to work there.
Very superstitious writings on the wall.
And I survive, I will survive. Hey, hey, you got me begging you for mercy. Why won't you release me? You got me begging you for mercy. Well, I gotta cut loose, pull loose, kick off your Sunday shoes. Please, Louise, hold me up on my knees. Sunday morning rain is falling. Steal some cover, share some skin. You got me feeling hella good, so let's just keep on dancing. You hold me like a shirt, so I'm gonna keep on dancing.
Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance with the stars up above in your eyes. A fantabulous night to make romance beneath the
You
cover.
know I'm here for the party.
last 8 years there with Open Road, we played festivals, we played corporate parties, we played weddings. So how I work with people, to me, again, music is a superpower. We heard that at the beginning of today's summit in terms of preserving culture using music. What we're going to close with tonight is Jake he's the CEO from Playing for Change Foundation. So when you talk about music, that to me is something that rather than just playing my favorite songs, what can we do? How can I present an idea? So bring your own music to engage people for positive change. So in the photo that you see there at the lower left, I've put these kind of conferences together for the last 4 years. This one was hosted by the Build Vita, ERG, at Build. They're about not even a mile from Levi Stadium. And we had people there attending, again, coming together and being an advocate and a change maker. One of the things that I did, working with a nonprofit, I had a relationship with Procter & Gamble. And the Procter & Gamble company said they would donate a truckload of their products for nonprofits that would pay for the shipping cost from Cincinnati to wherever. So I worked with nonprofits. They would spend $15,000 to have a full truckload shipped to their location. And I worked with nonprofits that were servicing and helping farm workers. So farm workers would, that nonprofit, ALAS, Ayudando Latinos a Sonar. I worked with Celebration Nation in San Joaquin Valley and the Mission Food Hub in San Francisco. So those organizations would pay $15,000 together and split or take that whole truckload, retail value $500,000. And over a 3-year period, I facilitated 5 of those. So here you could see the picture, City of Coachella. They gave away those items from Procter & Gamble there. And again, the picture in the far right corner at the bottom, that's me talking to students there at our AT&T facility in San Ramon, talking and telling them about planning for their career. What do they want to do in their heart? So to me, again, music is a way that people can relate to that. I was talking to the young lady there as a reporter, and she got it. She said, that's right. How do we take advantage, use music as a way to open doors and connect with people? I mentioned a moment ago the affordable housing in Half Moon Bay. So I was the one that put the presentation together, talking to the city of Half Moon Bay. I worked with the executive director of Ayudando Latinos a Sonar and Victoria Sanchez de Alba. And the idea was 15 years from now, you're not going to have farm workers doing the work here in these farms in Half Moon Bay because they can't afford to live here. So I asked them to take a dormant house that they had purchased that they had done nothing with for 7 years, asked them to demolish that, and we would bring in an affordable housing developer, Mercy Housing. And when we got to that point, we submitted the bid, and it is now in the process of being a 5-story, 40-unit, $40 million facility funded by tax credits and CERNA funds. And what that means is that here in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, $1,000, $2,000 for an apartment. And I saw 2 families living in a 1-bedroom apartment because they couldn't afford it, or farm workers 70 years or older living in their car just to do the farm work that they make maybe $25K a year. So with CERNA funds, they can pay what they can afford at $25,000 a year. It's not based on market rate. And to me, that's fine, but how do we take that? How can we expand that? That's something that can be replicated. So that's my energy about doing that. So how do we talk to people? At the Miller Center, I'm a founding member of a group that put together an unconscious bias work group. And what we talk about that is that, okay, yeah, Jeff Miller made billions of dollars, donated $25 million to Santa Clara based on his success. But when you're talking to young or entrepreneurs in other countries, you have to put yourself in their shoes. What if you're a Latina from Venezuela or a woman from Uganda? That's not Silicon Valley. And even Silicon Valley 20 years ago, that's not Silicon Valley today. So how can you take a look at dynamics, putting yourself in that other person's shoes? Because I've got unconscious bias issues. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I'm a 49er fan. I'm a Giants fan. So if anybody that's not from the Bay Area, you may be a Dodger fan, you may be a New York, but to me, the point is that put yourself in their shoes. You know, it's not us versus them. It's not this color versus that color. It's where do we find that bond that we can work together? So sources for biases. So our brain is the way how this works. So when we take a look, what do we remember when we're doing something? Sometimes we're just overloaded with too much information. Things like AI, for some people that are not comfortable or not using that, too much information creates or triggers certain kinds of biases. Some people say, this is what I believe, and I'm getting this information. Well, that's not going to change my mind. I'm going to do this. Sometimes it's availability. If you don't have enough information and you make a decision, sometimes it's based on groupthink. You could be with an organization and they say, we're going to do this, but you really haven't analyzed or thought through the process as to what's going to work best. Sometimes the triggers, you've got to act fast. And even in Silicon Valley, they're saying, you know, break it and then we'll fix it later. Well, that may work for software, but that may not work for all situations. So the trigger is, how do we think? And then these are just some basic biases in our decision making. When we talk about how do we recognize that, how do we have that conversation with people so that we can both agree on a path forward. So we talked about self-interest. When we talk about things like there's a halo effect where people, you know, invest in one idea because that makes them feel good. It may not be the right idea for that circumstance or situation, but because they feel good about it, they may want to go forward with it. When we talk about disaster neglect, that's, let's say, if we think, no, we're going to go do this, but wait a minute, there's torrential rain coming, or there's an earthquake or a tornado coming. You're not thinking about what the worst case might be. You're going with what the best case would be. So again, you know, these are just examples. You can look them up. These 12 biases were adapted from a list in the Harvard Business Review. But I'm mentioning it here because we all have biases and we need to work through that. Conversational intelligence, that's what we need to talk about. So the goal of conversation intelligence is to define the trust and continuum aiding people and recognizing what occurs in themselves and others during moments of distrust and guiding them towards trust. So when we talk about conversational trust, when you're working with an organization that you've not met with or worked with before, there are 3 levels. One, you're sharing basic information. That's transactional. That's a yes, no. That's how that process moves forward. When you talk about validation, if you're an attorney, you're talking to a jury. It doesn't matter who else is in the room. You're trying to convince that jury of your information. If you're the defendant, you want to flip that around. So again, when you talk about validation, there is an art of persuasion involved. Now, the next level is what I try to strive for. That's transformational. That's where you are honest, you're credible, you can be vulnerable in a conversation. Some of these are difficult conversations, something that may not happen the way you think, but when you open your heart, when you work with somebody, they may be going through some struggles too. They may have some unconscious bias, but if you have a conversation where you can trust each other and work through that, you'll be in a better place. So fosters honesty, vulnerability, and that exchange of information. That's where strong relationships are developed. Again, the work that I did there at AT&T, I was an ally for the women of AT&T. I'm not a woman, but we saw how we could work together. And the same thing with Hacemos. We had lots of women volunteers from the women of AT&T. So to be a trusted ally, to collaborate, to increase positive impacts with Indigenous people, that's a little different. Particularly when you heard Rachel Salinas earlier talking about Indigenous tribes across the country. Those tribes have been taken off the land that they were born on and put on reservations. And so they've been controlled in a long process here. So again, when you're working with those organizations, working with those people, acknowledge and recognize who they are. Establish your credibility to build trust. Give respect to get respect back. And take that on yourself, educate yourself, expand your colonization history knowledge and its consequences. We're in Native American Heritage Month. Last month was Hispanic Heritage Month. So understand what the dynamics are. Don't put it on them to explain to you. You have the opportunity to do some research on your own so that you can understand, like we started here with the acknowledgement for the Tamian Nation. When I'm at Santa Clara University, they do a land acknowledgement for the Ohlone people. So again, if you assume that everybody's Caucasian in the United States, no. When you assume, the Asian American group, well, wait a minute, that's Japanese, that's Chinese, that's Korean. So you understand their individual background. It's not a monolith. I'm not a Puerto Rican, I'm not Cuban, but I understand and respect the culture and where they grew up. And in my family, my wife is Japanese American. When I met her family, her aunts and uncles, all those people except for 3 grew up in internment camps. Put that in your thought process in terms of what that did for them when they were growing up. So to me, it's how can you empathize with people? How do you open yourself up so you can have those conversations, put yourself in their shoes so that you can sense, what would be done? Let me give you a quick example. My father-in-law was also an Army veteran for the United States, Japanese, Kawada last name. And at his celebration of life, right before that, at the service, there was a priest speaking about his background. And that priest said that, yes, he was a military person, and he was dishonorably discharged. And then he kept going on talking about other parts of his life. And I looked around the room, everybody there, like they got stabbed in the heart, because that was not true. But the tension that I felt, nobody was willing to stand up in that situation. And this was my father-in-law. So nobody was saying anything, but you could see that they were even bending down in their seats because it hurt them to say something that wasn't true about my father-in-law. So I stopped, I stood up, and I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "You may not have known this, but just a moment ago you said my father-in-law was dishonorably discharged." I said, "That is completely false." And when I called him out on it, he said, Oh, I didn't mean to say that. I'm sorry I said that. But had I not done that, those people would still be carrying that weight on them. So that's part of what I'm telling you about, is that we all need to be advocates for each other. We all need to look inside to find that strength to stand up. When I did things at Santa Clara University, at AT&T, I would talk to students about my college career strategic planning guide. Being a strategic planner at Crown Zellerbach, business plans, I said, okay, if I'm a young student, never been to college before, how do I even think about what's the process? So I would hand this out as a handout to the students, talking about 60 students at a time. And I would say, where do you want to be 5 years from now? These are seniors in high school. And I said, think about what it is that you want to do. Not me telling you to get a job, or your dad telling you to get a job. What is in your heart? And so that's your vision statement. So write that down. Don't just think about it, write it down. Now, after your vision statement, for that to be a reality for you 5 years from now, you need to set goals. So state what you need. Start writing goals down that you could achieve over that 5-year period. Now, objectives on a timeline. You have to measure your progress. Now, in my circumstance, when I went to Santa Clara University and then going into law school, I was a full-time student, but then my mother got cancer. So I decided, yes, I still want to get a law degree, but I'm going to rethink my timeline. I went to work for a company that would help pay for my education. But the most important thing to me was I was there for my mom and dad. So you need to have those milestones. Now, strategies. So for me, at Santa Clara University, it was $22,000 a year for undergrad to go to business school there. Now, $62,000 a year. So strategies, you need a financial strategy. Do you go to community college for 2 years and transfer over? Do you get a scholarship? Do you get several scholarships? One of the organizations that I worked with that we saw earlier at Bill.com they had a program working with Cristo Rey right here just down the street. And at Cristo Rey, they had work-study programs. So at Cristo Rey, a bus would pick them up. They would still do the same requirements for their semester, but they would do it on 4 days. And the 5th day, they would get on a bus and go to work. After they went through a boot camp of learning how to code at Bill, they got paid $40 an hour as a high school student. The next year, if they still wanted to do that on that one day, $50 an hour. The next year, $60. And after going through that period of time with that organization, after 4 years, and if they got into college and got their computer degree, starting salary $140,000 a year because they had 4 years of experience already. So that to me, and Cristo Rey is not just here. There's a Cristo Rey in Oakland, and there are 32 other campuses around the country. So to me, that's where we need to let our young people know, these are opportunities for you to work with. And then top down, that's how you prioritize your time. Look at activities based on what your deliverables are, where you stay focused on your strategies. So that's just the back of what I had them write down. So going back to the beginning of this, when I was telling you, I was looking at trying to find my why. And for me, it was going through that situation in a hospital. And that's where, just in that short period of time, I defined what I wanted to do. There's something that I learned when I was doing the nonwovens business. I was in Tokyo. And one of the things that I learned was the culture there. There's a phrase called Ikigai. And in their culture, that is a reason for being. So what does that boil down to? Here, you can look at this as a Gantt chart. So you have 4 circles would be the way to start this. What do you love? What do you love to do? That's what I was asking those high school students with my college career strategic planning guide. What's in your heart? What do you want to do in 5 years? The second circle, you start listing, what are you good at? What can you do that people would want to hire you for? That people would want to see that you've got that quality in you and they want to help you move to the next level. Now, what does the world need from you? So again, in my career, working with organizations, taking best practices, helping communities, helping ALAs, helping the farm workers, from my perspective, that's what the world needed from me. If I could put this conference together, if I could work with those farm workers and help them, I don't know all of them, but what I could do help facilitate that. So what does the world need from you? And then at the bottom, for what can you get paid? So you take those 4 circles that you put down and you superimpose them. And that drives your why. That, for me, tells me when I get up in the morning, I feel good about myself. I want to accomplish these things. No matter I get this distraction, that distraction, my computer's down, I'm still focused on accomplishing these things. If there's a brick wall, well, guess what? You don't have to bang your head against the wall. You can go around the wall to the left. You can go over the top. You can go under it. So again, dealing with obstacles, this is, to me, a way that you can look within your heart, work with organizations like nonprofits, Lean In Latinas. You can help each other. You can get fundraising guidance. You can learn how to prospect for new things. That's why I brought Latino Data Hub, Somos El Poder, is to give you those tools. You don't have to just stop and say, well, they cut our funding, or I'm going to lose my job because they're cutting headcount. Be proactive. Be able to take charge. Be able to move forward. And to me, Ikigai is that, yes, it's going to be a challenge. It'll be something maybe you're going to be uncomfortable with, but that's the technique that I would recommend. And if you want to talk to more about that, I'm involved. But that's my mission, is to share this information, not just with the people in the room, but across the country on YouTube with Expandy TV, with people that have not even heard of me or this conversation, but they can take that and reach out to me. Thank you.